Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com.
Hey now, today we're going to take a look at the Art of Science from Akabo Games. This is a trivia game, but it is specifically for scientific endeavors. Mathematics, physics, chemistry, and so on. These are the types of categories you're going to run into in this game. There are a few twists and turns over normal trivia games as well. So let's go ahead and take a brief look at how the game is played. Then we're going to come back and I'll let you know what I think. Alright, the Art of Science is a trivia game. The goal is to fill in every single block on your personal scoring sheet. Now, how this is formatted is such that there are 6 different categories in the game. Now, you're not going to play with every category depending on how short you want the game to be, and you're not going to play with every single scoring block, even for the categories that you do use. You decide how many points you want to play to as a group. And then, before the game starts, you're going to look at all the different categories, and you have mathematics, biology, chemistry, physics, and so on. You're going to decide what categories you're strong in, what categories you're very poor in. So, if you're really bad in one of the categories, you might put it down where you only have 2 blocks that you have to fill in. If you're really good at one of the categories, like you're really good at math, you might go, and by the way, I am not indicating that I'm good at math at all. I just kind of put these here in the order that they're on the cards. But if you're really good at math, you might put that as your strongest one, and therefore you don't really care that you might potentially have to answer 8 questions, 10 questions, 12 questions, because you're that confident that you can do it. And if you're the first person to fill in all the boxes, you're going to win the game. Also, when a box or a row becomes locked, which means you filled in every single box, that's what the lock indicates, you're in no danger of ever losing points, which is a possibility during the course of the game. So how this is going to work, you will choose one of the pawns of whatever color you like. You're going to start wherever you want out there on the track, and when it's your turn, you're going to roll the die. It's normal 6-sided die. Move in any amount of spaces you want in either direction, and then wherever you end up, you have to answer one of the questions off the card. You'll grab one of the cards off of these stands, which are pretty unnecessary, and you can't even fit all the cards there. That's why there's another huge stack of cards here, but whatever, okay, it looks good. So grab the card, then you're going to read the question and try to answer it correctly. And if you do answer correctly, you're going to score however many points are on the space that you landed. You get to check off those boxes from the appropriate spot. So since I'm on the light pink spot, I'm going to look at the question for technology, which is, you probably can't see that, what do you call a bridge over land that connects points of similar height in a landscape? I don't think I actually know that. A bridge over land that connects points of similar height in a landscape. I don't know. I feel like I should know that. An inlet, something. A viaduct. Okay, a viaduct. Well, there was no way I was going to get that. So I was incorrect. But if I was right, I would go ahead and fill in those boxes for technology, and I would be that much closer to victory. If you're incorrect, nothing happens. But if you are right, then play just continues. Now, if you're right on a question that is inapplicable for you because you've already filled in all the boxes for that and locked it, you get to roll the die and go again. So answering one of those questions correctly just gives you another free turn, another opportunity to fill in the boxes that you need. There are also special spaces out on the board that you could potentially land on that give you different effects. So for instance, on the die spaces, that is very simply just re-rolling and moving again and then getting a chance to answer whatever question you want there. So it's just an empty space, I guess, another chance to re-roll. Now, these spaces that have plus and minus n on them, when you go there, you're going to roll the die, which will determine which category you're going to choose. So depending on which one you roll, it could be mathematics, biology, whatever. You just go 1 through 6 down the card, and that's the category that you have to take a question from. But before you see the question and before you choose to answer it, you wager an amount of points off of the unlocked spots on your sheet. So if you have a total of 6 points between the unlocked categories on your sheet, you can wager up to 6 points that you are going to get that question correct. And if you do, you're going to gain another 6 points that you get to distribute amongst your unlocked categories. If you're wrong, you lose that many points, whatever you wager. So that's why I said before, you could actually lose points in this game. These little multicolored gear symbols here are the universal genius spaces. You can choose whatever category you like when you land on that space, and if you answer it correctly, you get 3 points, which you can distribute to any categories you like. And lastly, these cross, sword, and quill is the evolutionary duel. How this works is that if you're the one that lands here, you choose another player and you're involved in a duel with them. One of the other, and you select a category. A third player is going to grab one of the cards, read the question from the category that you selected. Whoever yells out the answer first and correctly is going to win the duel. That player gets 3 points to distribute however they like. The other player has to lose 3 points. And that's pretty much the game. I mean, essentially, it's a trivia game with a lot of extra bells and whistles and things you can do, and having to have a broad, sweeping knowledge of a lot of things, but be particularly good at some things, and don't have to be particularly good at other things. Oh, one thing I will mention as well: you can actually ask for help from people if you really are stumped on a question and want to answer it. But in that case, you have to split your points with the other player. That is The Art of Science. Let's get to my final thoughts. The Art of Science is a very interesting game to me because I was having some issues trying to figure out who the game was best suited for. Who is the intended audience? On the one hand, definitely people who are in education, either teachers and professors who want to have a tool in their classroom for the kids or college-age students to be able to use either in their downtime or when the substitute teacher is there. It can be sort of an interesting diversion, something to break out and to actually learn something at the same time while playing a game. So it'd be useful in that regard. Or if you're a student yourself, this can be a great way to own up on a lot of your different studies. Really, you can just focus on one category if you want and even just test yourself going through it. If you're in a very, very specific field of study, it might be a problem for you. But if you're just trying to bone up on the stuff that you're interested in or that you're dabbling in, it could be a great tool for that. I also think, though, that the publisher and designer intended it to be for gamerly gamers like myself, but who were really, really interested in these different fields of study and science. That is not me, I will say right off the bat, because I like science. I like reading about it. I love reading articles about scientific endeavors and going into space and medical breakthroughs. That's very interesting to me, but I am not intelligent enough in those areas to comprehend it when you break it down to its base levels and like theories and mathematical problems and their solutions. I am just not wired that way. I think I'm a fairly intelligent person, but it's more about like spatial reasoning and creative reasoning, not scientific reasoning. That's just not my area. And so, but even if I was inclined that way, and I did play with people who are way smarter than me, people who have much more education within fields like biology, I don't feel there's enough game here to get those people involved, because at a certain point, this is just a trivial game with a lot of similarities to Trivial Pursuit. That's just the way that it is. In fact, everyone was like, oh, okay, this is scientific Trivial Pursuit, right? And I know that that's not what they intended, because there are little bells and whistles that make this significantly different in some areas. The thing that I like the most about it is having to fill in your personal chart of the categories and put the categories that you're strongest in the areas where you need to answer the most questions, and the ones that you're really weak in, you can do it on the areas that you only need a couple of points in order to lock them down. I love that. I really do, and I think that that is something that should be in every trivia game, because even in normal games, quote unquote, like Trivial Pursuit, where you have different categories of things like entertainment and history, everyone's going to be bad at something. And for me, it would be the science category in games like Trivial Pursuit. And to be able to just say, okay, well, I only need to worry about answering a couple questions here, and then I can move on to something else, that's great. And if you happen to get those right again, you just get an extra turn. That's fantastic. So I enjoy that, and it's nice that there is a breadth of categories to delve into. And there are the special spaces on the board, like the evolutionary duels and things like this. But at a certain point, this is just a trivia game. There's nothing much more to it than that. And it's the type of game, because it is so hyper-focused on, again, while there's a lot of different categories, they're still all within the fields of the sciences. And not everyone is going to be, into that or know a ton of stuff about it. And because it's so specific, there's going to be one or two players that will smoke the other players. That happened in each of the games that I played. That is just how it's going to happen. which is not terribly fun for the other players. And yes, you're learning something, but really, how much of this are you going to retain because you are just playing a game? So I guess my final critique of this game is that if you're an educator or if you're in an education setting and want to present something to the class, this would be fantastic. If you're a gamer who's really into science and loves learning this stuff and, boning up on it, you're maybe going to be interested in this game. But if you're someone who's not interested in science at all, this is not going to get you into it. It's just not. And there's not enough meat on it or game to it to really get people to be like, oh, wow, I'm playing an awesome game and also learning about science at the same time. Well, no, you're playing a trivia game with a couple of interesting extra bits, and then you're learning about science, but with really hard and really esoteric questions. Because some of the questions are really tough and really specialized. So, I don't know. It's tough to... I think that unless you're in an education setting, I really wouldn't be able to recommend this game. But hey, A for effort. I'm glad that they at least tried to twist the trivia genre and make it into something more interesting. That is The Art of Science from Abaco Games.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.